What's going on, everyone? It's time to break down our week 4 results for this weekly challenger series. We only have 1 week left, so one more challenge to get after it. I'm looking forward to a nice showing next week. It's going to take a little bit of adaptation and kind of, being creative on your end to complete next week's test, but that's part of the process. So get ready for that one releasing on Monday. But this one, we're talking about the broad jump here, and really good test, a lot of data with this test. It's one of the most researched tests out there, and it's pretty easy to implement as long as you have a tape measure and you're able to go after it. In terms of placing, pumped to say myself and my wife took the top spots for males and females this week, so we kept it in the Hickey household, and had some good jumps in there from everyone as well. It was pretty neat to see, a couple of my one-on-one athletes are completing this, just for something fun to see where they stack up. This is a regular test I use with one-on-one athletes that I work with. And so some have seen improvement, from a short time in training. And the cool thing with this test is honestly an inch of progress or improvement means a lot for your performance. There's a lot of research on just getting an inch better at this test, what that means for your power development and things like that. So great job to everyone that participated in the test. You can kind of see where you stacked up as I scroll here. And again, this is week 4 of 5, so we have one more test, and I can't thank you enough for participating in this. Not only is this a fun challenge, it's also really good data for me as a coach, and I plan on using this information as I move forward with working with athletes and clients of all ages and backgrounds. So can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. So let's get into what all this means and everything. So one thing, it looks like I can't spell, so let's fix this real quick. There we go. The broad jump, heavily researched. What I did is I took information from our data set and then also gave you some information from a larger study that had thousands of data sets. So you can kind of see what's going on here. In terms of our averages, ladies average 59 inches, men average 71.6. You can see the top 10 and top 50% breakdown that we saw for this group. And then down here, you can actually see what we saw from this larger study with thousands of data points. So you can see the 10% mark was about 75 inches for females, 95 for males. And then the 50% mark was 63 for females and 83 for males. So just to give you a little bit more to go off of than the 12 data points we have, it's fun to compare and see how we stacked up to a larger data set. And again, neither of these tests were controlled for age or sport background or anything, or training style. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for an individual measure to aim for, take your height in inches, add half of that to that number, and that's a great goal to be at an elite level for your jump. So you can take that simple measure to give yourself a benchmark of what you're looking to accomplish. And there's a lot of great research on this test. It's reason it's so widely used, from elementary school presidential fitness testing all the way up to the NFL Combine. And I'll share some pretty cool data on that as well. So what does this exercise focus on? It's showing how fast you can create force. So it's a very quick downward and out movement. And you don't have a whole lot of time to really press into the ground compared to like a barbell back squat, for example. So you have to produce force pretty quickly. You have to use your entire body for power. So yeah, it's leg driven, but your arms are a third of your power. So throwing those arms out in front of you, really helps this process. And then it's coordination. You have to be able to go down and establish this amazing stretch, this counter movement, jump out, control yourself in space enough that when you go to land, you can stick the landing. And that's easier said than done. That's a lot of different pieces going, into that whole process. And then, if you want to improve this, when's the last time you actually jumped? That's one thing I always ask in training, especially as aging comes into the picture. We start to fear jumping a little bit. And it's not necessarily the jumps that we should fear. It's all the other stuff we do in day-to-day life that has made us fear the jumps. So that's something to keep in mind. Just, we kind of put this, oh, it hurts my knees, it kind of hurts my ankles or whatever. We put all that pressure on the jump, but it's usually a lot of the stuff that you're doing outside of the jumps that causes that discomfort and everything. So find a jump variation that works for you, plyometric variation that works for you. You can do things from pretty low impact to a lot higher impact. You can work on speed movements. So, again, how fast can you complete something? For example, if I'm doing a squat, I might say, hey, I want you to hold a pace of 1 squat a second. Or then, just work on efficiency of movement. So you felt that stretch when you reach overhead, you squat down, how controlled are you with that? Were your knees buckling all over the place? Were you struggling to maintain control of your body as you did this jump? And that can be a really good bit of information based off of just how good of a mover you are, which is going to help you prevent injuries and then also perform at a higher level if you're still, enjoying different performance goals and things like that. So there's the breakdown of kind of the data we saw, comparing it to a larger data set as well. Remember, your height in inches plus a half of that is a great high level number to aim for, and is something that's super challenging, and gets into some pretty heavy duty jumping. So let's look at, generally regarded as some of the best athletes on the planet. If you look at NFL players, the NFL draft was actually, started last night, and I saw that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, drafted a guy, offensive lineman, I believe. He could jump out of the pool, waist high water, and he's like 350 pounds. He can get up and dunk a basketball like none other. I remember in my time at Penn State, walking through the football facility in the off season, they had rolled out a hoop for the guys to play basketball. And I watched an offensive lineman 360 dunk on someone, and the guy was not small by any standards. So, even looking at offensive linemen, obviously looking at your skill players, there's some high level of athleticism there. Not always the best movers. There's a lot of things that they could tidy up as well, but they're athletes, right? And it shows with some of the crazy things that they can do on the field. The mean or the median for their jumps at the NFL Combine, especially for this was looking at running backs, I believe, was 118 inches. So I don't think I have any shot of being a running back in the NFL anytime soon. And, if you were there when I jumped, everything was a little bit creaky at first because I went in and did it cold turkey, which I wouldn't recommend either. So you can see 118 inches is kind of the median score, is ridiculous. Like, that's insane. If you were above that threshold of 118 inches as a running back, you probably had about 1,200 yards minimum in your career in the NFL. So you at least racked up some sort of yardage. If you fell under that 118-inch threshold, you probably, based off the data, did not really amount to that much in terms of yardage in the NFL. So I thought that was pretty interesting. They were able to find this trend, and that's all it is. It's a trend. The data points to this being a potential measure of performance, but as we know, there's a lot of different ways to achieve performance. But I just thought it was pretty interesting that, there's a little bit of weight behind this 118-inch threshold that teams might be looking at when they look at a running back, for example. And so if something like this measure is in the discussion when they're going to draft a running back, it probably means we can focus on it a little bit more in our training, right? We can find a way to implement this a little bit more. So great job with this week's test. Wanted to share some extra information there. Again, we have one more week, so I look forward to you guys closing it out. For next week, you're going to need a pretty sturdy table and something you feel comfortable hanging on with that table. So tune in on Monday. Feel free to invite your friends for this last go. We can totally add some more people to the mix. And we'll see you on Monday for our final challenge.